Hi, I'm XaoTheArtist, and today I will be walking you through my process of creating storyboards and layout for my hand-drawn animated film. But hold up.
Wait a minute!
Pause! We gotta break down. What do I mean when I say storyboards and layout? You know, for all the people who aren't massive animation nerds who study how animated films are made. Okay, so you know that really cool sequence that you saw in an animated TV show or a movie? Yeah, no. The animators didn't just start drawing that willy-nilly. That whole sequence was meticulously planned. Everything from the composition of each shot, the path that characters follow, and even more subtle things like a slight shift in perspective or even a very minor expression change. This is usually handled by an art director or some sort of equivalent who specializes in storyboarding, or sometimes even an entire department, as in a team of people who only work on planning everything for a scene. They don't touch the final animation. It's just planning. The website I got these storyboards from, by the way, is called Sakugabooru. I'll leave a link in the description if you want to look at that. Now that you have an example of what storyboards can look like from a TV show, let's keep things rolling and hop right over to how I approached creating the storyboards for my project. Going chronologically, I first got down these very rough storyboards. You could call them thumbnails per se. This is just so I can get the idea down easily, get it out of my head and onto the page. The super loose style lets you experiment and not be too constrained or worried about changing things. That said, I do have some ways to cope with the loose style, such as I put the characters' names written, and I also number things a lot and have little annotations when I think is necessary. It also allows you to better understand the scope and scale of your project. For example, even though I have thought about this a lot, it's only after I drew all these little rough sketches that I can say, yeah, about 11 things happen. About 11 actions, maybe not necessarily 11 scenes per se, but 11 actions, like character does this, character does that. So I know I have about 11 things I need to animate. Technically, this is a full portrayal of the story, the entire skit from shot 1, the establishing shot, all the way to 11, which is the credits. Now, I had already thought about this a lot, and I already kind of had most of the dialogue in my head. I thought about it. I kind of knew what I was doing going into this. So that's why I went straight into boarding rather than doing a screenplay script or writing things out. Well, I had already thought about this and had most of the dialogue roughly correct in my head. I decided to go and make a full-on screenplay. Now, screenplays are a little funny because technically it doesn't really matter the format that you put them in as long as they have internal consistency. For example, in my screenplay, I put the scene or camera angle that the shot takes place in sort of bold here as a headline. Then I put whatever character is in the shot, their name, in regular text. Then I put voice lines or dialogue are in quotations, and then any descriptions of actions that characters are taking are in italics. It is kind of nice to have some mercy on your future self who will have to go back and reread all of this and make visuals from it. Again, you don't have to do it in this order. I just had thought about it a lot and I wanted to portray it visually. You could go from a written script to really loose storyboards, or you could go the route that I did with loose storyboards to written scripts. Now, we're going to take note of angle A and angle B. That's going to be important later. We're going to just put a little pin in that, and we will come back to that later. Alrighty, with the screenplay knocked out and the dialogue locked in, I decided to make a more refined version of the storyboards, which I'm going to actually refer to as layout. Yeah, we're going to write it up there at the top of the sheet because that'd be fun. Now, layout can mean different things for different productions, you know, depending on what studio or what person is making it can depend on what that might mean. Some productions have more detailed drawings for what they would refer to as the layout step in the production pipeline. I'll put an example on screen right now of a cut from Lego Monkey Kid where you can see this. You see the drawings are pretty detailed basically final for the frames that are drawn, and it shows the positioning of the characters that will later be animated. Now, back to my project. Even though these storyboards are rougher than that, I'm still going to refer to it as a layout. And the reason for that is because these are actually the final sort of positioning and composition of the film. I'm going to go straight. I'm just going to blow these little pictures up, and I'm going to animate right over them. Because I actually put in all that thought up front and committed and nailed down where everything is, I'm going to call this the layout. Now, if you are an extremely astute viewer, you may notice, the format of your storyboards look eerily similar to the storyboards from Bleach that I showed you earlier. And you would be correct, because I actually just downloaded a generic anime storyboard template. Now, I think it's really important to say the reason for that is I just wanted some structure to kind of latch on to and help me out here. You don't have to storyboard like this by any means, especially if you're going solo like me. I don't have anyone at the moment to help me with the visuals, so I'm really only communicating with my future self. I do see why having a standardized storyboard would be very useful, because, you know, over in the anime industry, at this point, it is tradition that has been going on for decades, which means the communication aspect is easier. But yeah, if you're just making your own films, don't stress about doing a template, but I wanted just a little something for me to latch on to. And it's worked out quite nice. I just think it's important to explain why I'm doing something, especially if it's something like a template or a format that I am conforming to. That said, I am quite liking this structure. It has a really distinct verticality to it that, you know, if you just kind of put a bunch of sticky notes on your wall or little index cards, you might not line them up like this, but I really like it. And the reason for that is because if you just kind of look up and down, you can really see how these shots will relate to each other or transition into each other. So for example, right here, I got a little bit of nice rule of thirds for the composition, making this the focal point, and the door of the coffee shop building right here, another focal point. As well, there's a character who will be walking screen right to screen left, and so this sort of left third is the focal point of this shot. Then, as I can just glance down here and be like, ah, yes, cool. This character, who's the main character who is sketching inside of the coffee shop, is in roughly the same spot that the audience's eyes have been directed to focus, which means they are now the focal point. All right, real quick to translate for anyone in my audience who is not bilingual, specifically speaking English and Japanese, which I think is everyone if I'm not mistaken. Just the symbols at the top. This is kato, which is just cut. You know, this denotes the order that the scene is. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. These two translate to picture screen. That's just, you know, what's actually being displayed on the screen. This is where your storyboards are drawn. This little kanji over here, which I actually can read because I looked it up on G-Show. Yippee! It means seconds. So this denotes where you would mark the duration of your shot in seconds. So how long each scene would take to play out. Notice mine is blank because I'm not actually doing it like that, where you mentally think, okay, this scene takes this many seconds. I'm going to put all these little slides into a video editor and I'm going to time them out and see how they feel. I'm going to do that later. I'll talk about it when I get there. Don't worry about it. Now these two roughly translate to content or stand for content. And this is where you would put your dialogue, notes on the action, sound effects, any written notes, really. And that is a nice segue to the written notes that I have in the notes section. So I have a lot of little bits of writing here, which just kind of make it easier. For example, like right here, I don't have to draw a logo because I just say, hey, here, that little green stuff over there, that's a logo. I have a note for a character that is going from screen right to screen left. And I have this, which is denoting the background of the shot and what angle it is at. And I just have a big arrow, you know, going all the way down. And that is nice because it implies that all of these boards here, here, here have the same background as this one. And so that's nice because I don't have to copy it over and over, and I can just focus on drawing the elements that change, and it's just implied that all of this in the background is roughly static. Now, remember that little pin? I said I'd elaborate on angle A? Yeah, we're going to unpin that, and we're going to talk about that right now. So angle A and angle B refer to this. So this is a floor plan of the coffee shop, and I would highly recommend you do one of these for a location, especially if it's a building with a lot of stuff in it, or if it's just any important scene really. Having a top-down view, sort of bird's eye view, or a lot like a blueprint actually, gives a much greater mechanical understanding of an environment and makes it a lot easier to draw the backgrounds, and it just really deepens your understanding of the location. I have the 180-degree line, and so the camera angles refer to that. So angle A would be any camera on this side of the line, pointing this way, sort of filming that. And then angle B would be any camera on this side of the line, sort of filming in that direction. So that denotes that it is this background, as in inside the coffee shop, but the A and B are so I can easily keep track of which way we are facing. Returning back to the layout, I have various colors for various characters. I don't usually do this. I usually actually draw with red for characters and then blue or green, or both blue and green, for backgrounds. That way the characters kind of distinguish themselves from the background and don't get lost in all that if I'm sketching loosely. But for this one, I didn't have too many characters, and I decided to just give each one a unique color, which let me be a bit looser, but still distinguish who was who very easily. I also had a little, little key, make it easy to remember. A fun little thing to have here, which is nice to have it all in one place actually, is to have the notes for music or sound effects. Like right here, a character is entering, and so I have a little play shop doorbell sound, a little ding whenever someone enters the store. I believe that's just about everything that covers the sort of mechanics of this. I have, the number on the left in order. I have some annotations for various things. As well, I have different colors to distinguish different characters, and I have this little thing here, which implies that anything that is not explicitly changing is just the previous background repeated. So, with all that, let me walk you through what actually happens, and I think this is decent enough since I am here to explain you the sequence of events. So, let's go. All right. Starting from the beginning, we have the establishing shot. This sort of shows the coffee shop that the whole skit takes place in, as well as a few cars and the street. And I have Sapphire, who is one of the main characters. She is walking from screen right to screen left, and she's going to walk into the store. And it's important that this sequence takes at least a little bit of time because I have to play a certain riff that sounds like a Zelda theme in order to make it an accurate tribute. What? Did you not expect that? Makes perfect sense. Then we cut to the inside of the coffee shop. There are a few pedestrians who are important. Neo is in the back, the little pink one, and there is Bella who is sketching. We actually have to hold, this is an important part where I can mention, it's very interesting when you start planning these because you realize you have to make sure you have good staging where each action has time to play out, because I know, oh yeah, she's sketching right there because I came up with it. But an audience, if you just go bam, 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 if you go too fast, you can lose people. So you got to watch out for that. So we hold here for a minute. Let's just sketching. And then this character earlier, who again was walking, same character, Sapphire, who was walking screen right to left into the building. Different location. We're now inside. But she continues her right to left journey, which will make it a little bit more familiar and make it a little bit easier to distinguish. Oh yeah, that's the same character that we saw walking earlier. She says some shit, and then this other person, Chloe, who was sitting back here, is going to just totally jump scare the audience, because what I'm going to do, I'll have an example of this on screen. The example is a little more extreme, but it illustrates my point. The background characters are going to be a little bit faded, and then they're going to just pop out and then be full color. So for this scene, she's going to be a little bit faded up here, and then she's just going to be like, bam! She's just going to be equally vibrantly colored as the other two main characters here. And we go from a sort of angle like this, where she's kind of encroaching on this space and talking to the other person, to a full-on little triangle, and it's sort of now she's going and encroaching on that space. She yells some stuff. She's kind of defending the other cat, which is just funny. I don't want to spoil the punchline too much. That's why I'm not saying the exact dialogue. And as a little retaliation, she backs up and then just kicks over the coffee table, which I think is hilarious. And then we have some notations that after Sapphire kicks over the table, there's sort of like an awkward silence. And that takes us to the next set of boards. And right here, this was actually suggested by a friend. After they catch themselves, because she doesn't just fall on her face or anything, she actually catches herself, there is this kind of just moment where everything just hangs and kind of lets you process, wait a minute, that cat just kicked over a coffee table that another cat was standing on. What the fuck? There's just this sort of awkward silence. This was actually suggested by a friend, which I'm very appreciative of. Bella, the person who was sketching, kind of gets up really slowly, and you just hear the chair just like just screeching on the floor, just incredibly awkwardly. And then she moves over sort of to the left. After that, we have the other cat. We got the little goober Chloe. She's gonna do a big spin up like this, and then it's just gonna hang, and there's gonna be sort of a delay before the axe kick comes down, and we're gonna cut, and this is angle B, which, if you recall, is now on this side, so sort of more by the employees area, the checkout. We have the barista, who's gonna be like, hey, your order's ready, guys, and it's gonna cut back a little bit chaotic. We're flipping back between stuff, and so we're gonna have the axe kick hover. It'll be like, hey, we got your order. And then it's just gonna slam down, and it's gonna turn it into a super budget, just like 3-frame dust cloud loop. You just see like arm, tail, ear, like the very cartoony kind of like cat fight, just like just all over the place. And the character drawing, she's gonna look like super surprised, just like, oh god, they actually full sent it. After that, we're gonna go back to angle B, back to the sort of the reaction of the employee. Let's be like, yeah, I'll come back in a minute. Yeah, maybe later. Then we flip back to angle A. This is adding up to be quite a bit. We're on cut 12 already. Back to angle A, we are going to actually take the same scene, basically. So the same scene that happened in 10, it's going to be in 12, and I'm just going to zoom in all the way. Remember this, the little pink cat that I told you about? She's important. So she's going to hold up a sign because it's a joke that it's a reference to another character who I'm pretty sure is mute, so she never talks. But in the Chibi spinoff, she holds up signs, and it's really funny. So she's just going to hold up a sign and be like, yeah, they won't. It's like, come back in a minute. Nah, they won't. Then after that, that's the punchline. And we got just a little fun scene. I got Josh, who is my one of the characters. I just kind of throw him in all the stories. Yeah, even if it's just like a one-off cameo. He's just the multiversal traveler who's everywhere. He's sweeping the floors, and he's listening to metal music, which is going to be really funny. It's very calm, but he's listening to very driving music. And there's going to be another joke in there, but I won't spoil that. And yeah, credits. I might have a little bit of help, who knows? And we're gonna have to thank everybody. We're gonna have to thank them for watching, just like I'm gonna thank you for watching right now. A sweet segue. But before we close out completely, I do want to inform everybody that this is technically a series. I'm trying to have each part sort of stand on its own. That's why I didn't introduce it as a part 1 at the beginning. Yeah, even if it's just a little bit. But you can watch the previous video if you want a proper introduction, if you're curious about how I came up with the concept, who this film is paying tribute to, why I chose the subject I did. I actually talk about that very extensively, and I have it on my channel. It should be the previous video right before this one. So you can go check that out if you would like. Also, if any of this process looks interesting, either this one or the one before it, any of it, you can check out my newsletter on my own personal website where you can sign up and you'll be emailed only when a new project begins or ends, which is the best way to make sure that you'll be the first to know when the film is finished and live on my channel. That's all I have for you today. See you around.